Jimmy, very good to have you on here, sir. Thank you so much.
All right, right on, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Uh, Kind of starting from the beginning here with you. When did you first pick up the guitar?
Uh, I was kind of messing with it um a little bit because my sister had a little, I think it was like a little beater acoustic guitar at the time. Actually, this used to where I'm at right now, this used to be her room, actually, where she played drums in. And yeah, it was just like I was kind of messing with it a little bit, but didn't really get proper into it until around like I was 12.
Okay. It's a good age to get into it.
Yeah, and it was just, I mean, because the guitar was already in my head anyway. Because when I first heard "My Girl" and stuff like that, or "Smoke Robinson and the Miracles," I second that emotion and hear that little, that little part, and that's what really got me into it, and stuff like that, amongst other things, of course, But I'll get into that later.
Um, who were some other kind of musicians or artists that were influencing the way that you began to play early on?
I would say Chuck Berry was one of them. Pat O'Hare, who played with Bobby Blue Bland, he played on Falling Up the Road. Um, Jimi Hendrix, of course. Uh, who else? Muddy Waters, Herbert Sumlin, who played with Howlin' Wolf. Elmore James. The list could go on and on. It was a lot of that stuff. Some of the guitar players, one of the guitar players who played with Funk Incorporated, some of like Jimmy Nolan with James Brown, people like that. So that's really what early on it was. But it was mostly blues players and stuff of like the rock and roll persuasion, like the stuff like Little Richard would do and all that. So that was really the stuff. But I really wanted to be Chuck Berry majority of the time because I used to love playing Johnny B. Good and stuff, even though I only had like an acoustic guitar that only had two strings on. So that was the only thing I could do at the time. But yeah, that was pretty much it. Yeah.
Two strings can get you pretty far, you know.
Oh yeah. I mean, well, if you can play, I mean, if you got two strings, you can play the intro of Johnny Be Good, but you can't play anything else. It's
Yeah, but
just that.
you got that intro locked in though, that's what's
Yeah,
important.
yeah, but the thing about it is, it was trying to keep it in tune because the thing about it is, it was like the because my mother had got it. I think she had got it at some skate shop or something. It was just like sitting there, and it was like I think it was like $20, and she got that for me. And the tuning pegs were cheap, and so as soon as you tune it, the fake nylon like broke, so I had to like tune it with wire pliers.
Perfect. Perfect. When did you get a nicer guitar, we'll say?
I the next one would be was a Harmony Rocket, and I remember correctly, it was in downtown Seattle, which the place is no longer there. It was at a pawn shop, and it was a cherry red guitar, as I recall, with the mustache-looking pickups, as I recall. And it was very. I loved that guitar, and I wanted it, even though I would later find out the neck was bowed and other stuff. But to me, it was a nice guitar. I mean, you couldn't go wrong. So it was like, oh, got it at a pawn shop, as all we could afford. So it's just like, yeah, and did that. It was great.
Yeah. Did you feel like that after getting that guitar that's when stuff really started to click for you?
Yeah, I was just like, I was just messing around with it. I was just listening to my mother's records and put those on and just play along to it, like not knowing really, like, oh, is this the chord or this, or whatever the name of the chord is. I just tried to pick it out the best way I could, from listening to those records, but, listen to like Mustang Sally by Wilson Pickett, or as we call the Wicked Pickett, and hearing that. And I was just trying to pick along with that because that's the stuff I really wanted to play. It was just blues and rhythm and blues more so than anything. because I really related to that. I still do, of course. But it was just that was the music that just really spoke to me, and always has and still does.
Right. Did you feel like it took some time to get comfortable with the guitar during that kinda early period?
Yeah, because I remember. Let me track back when I started. I didn't understand like which side I'm supposed to be on, so I started off playing left-handed first, and so I was like, "Oh, this is hard," and so I was like, "Okay, let me try it the other way," and then I went the other way. I was like, "This is much easier," and still to this day, sometimes every now and again, I remember going to a jam session years ago, and it was like somebody had a left-handed guitar that was strung left-handed or whatever. And it was just like and it came back to me. I was like, oh, I'm playing the board backwards, stuff like that. But it was pretty weird. I don't know. It was kind of odd.
At what point did you start playing with other people and kind of, joining other groups and this kind of thing?
I played in. I ended up playing in the high school band, which the school at the time didn't have one. And I kept saying, I was like, man, it'd be cool to have a high school band. And so I guess the principal heard that. She was like, okay, let's get a music teacher. And most high school bands of that time, and still do, but they were most high school bands were playing jazz, most of the time. And we as a high school band, it's funny because I just visited the bass player and his kids not too long ago. Um, we didn't want to play that stuff. We were like nothing against it, but we were like, man, we want to play like the groovy stuff. Like we wanted to play like funk and rhythm and blues. And so we got together. I think the first song, as I recall, the lady who was singing, she wrote a song called Susie's Blues. And then we did Funky Town by Lips Incorporated, which was the first songs we ever did. That was more disco, but it was still cool. And somewhere in my collection, I have it on VHS of the first talent show we played.
And what
And the
was
name of the band was called Blue Attitude Jazz Band, is what it was called. Even though it was called Blue Attitude Jazz Band, we rarely played jazz. I mean, there was some stuff we played, like something like Cannonball Adderley or something like that, or Miles, but that was about it. But most of the stuff we were playing, like James Brown and Kool and the Gang and stuff like that. That's the stuff that I still have some of that stuff on CD somewhere of some of the recordings, and there's a version of us doing Hollywood Swinging by Kool and the Gang at like a show called Glimpses, which was like the summer. I think, was it Glimpses? No, Glimpses was the winter show, and then the talent show was the middle show. Sorry, and somewhere, yeah, you could hear us in the back, our young voices, little 50-year-old me going, hey, hey, because my voice was super high then. But it was it was hilarious to listen to it and come back to that. It was like, whoa, that was so long ago. That was like 1996, as I recall, but it was fun.
Yeah. How did you feel the first time that you performed with that band?
Uh Nervous, and still have them same butterflies still to this day. I remember looking at it with a friend of mine. We were like one of the bandmates, and even though it's been so many years, I don't know why my hands started sweating all over again, exactly like it did when I first played. And I'm wiping my hands off, and then it's funny looking at the video. That's what we did. We played the first song, and then we were like, "We're all nervous because that was the first time playing in front of like a big crowd of people, and you're playing in front of your peers and all that." But it was just like we were nervous, and it's like I remember everything still exactly like how it happened when we got up on stage. It was a dance crew came before us, and then we were waiting in the wings. And we're all like, oh, and they were all plugging in. And it's like, we didn't have much equipment because the school couldn't afford it. But so the band director, he had like a keyboard amp. So the bass, the guitars, and the keyboard all plugged into this one little amp, and And then the drum set we had was just a snare and a hi-hat. That was it. No bass drum, and then the horns, we had horns, and the other piano player had to play in the orchestra pit, so you couldn't see her. But I have it on video somewhere. It's on VHS, that's for sure.
Did that initial experience kind of spark the interest for you of, oh yeah, okay, I want to continue doing this?
I think it was already there before that. Yeah, actually. Quite naturally, just us just wanting to play. Because I mean, half the time we would, after like sixth period, because that was what band would, because that's all we looked forward to. We didn't care about anything else. We just looked forward to that. And sometimes we would like at lunchtime, and what would we do? At lunchtime, sometimes we would ask the principal, like, "Hey, can we open up one of the rooms during lunchtime?" And then we go in there and practice before the sixth period, Or I'm off in the corner with my little Pepsi Cola and red vines playing over in the corner, going over the tune, and or being out in the grass area, outside and playing, But we would do that, and then if after school we would go to our bass player's house, and we would go over there and play at his house, of course. And sometimes we get so wrapped up in it that we forget to do it, miss an assignment, and then of course get a bad grade, which I did on Spanish one day. It really happened because I neglected it. My mom was not happy about that. But it was just that's what we would do. And then on the weekends, sometimes we go to his house and go over songs and just play, and just like, hey, let's make sure we're tight on this. Let's make sure we're tight on that. And it worked, and that's all we wanted to do. So yeah, it was great.
Did you feel like you were becoming more proficient with the instrument early on in those kind of stages of constantly being around the guitar?
Well, it's like I was always learning, and I mean, still learning, and it's like I would just go watch other people sometimes, and other guitarists, and not only listen to blues records, but one of the guys who runs a music school around here, uh, he was 15, so he was older than me, and when I mean older than me was like when I was 12, he was 15,
Which
and
is
I would
so much
watch him.
older. That's like an adult. Yeah.
Right, but at the same time, he got older, and so I would watch him. I would go to his shows. When I became 15, I don't know what age. I guess how many years is that? So he was almost close to his teenage year. I mean, senior year. But I would go watch, and just sit there and watch and be like, "Oh man, what's that chord you're playing there? Oh, what's that?" Because I didn't really know the name of the chords. You just hear them, and stuff like that. And I was like, "Oh, okay, E." Sad chord, which is of course E minor, or E happy chord, that's major, because I didn't know the names of them, and sometimes those guys who would go like the other high school bands who are like jazz educated, jazz trained, would tell me, "Oh, this is what you're playing. Oh, this is a minor, this is a major, no, this is a seven or something," like, because I didn't know the names of that stuff, I just play and I heard it and I was just like, okay, it's cool, you know, but uh it was just watching other players and just listen to those records, or my mother would go and find, like, if there was something I really wanted, because I was the type of kid who didn't really want much, but she would like we would go to Ross, and they would have those was it I think it was like, I don't know if it was 99 cents or a dollar, and you could go get like a tape, like tapes, cassette tapes for like a dollar or something. And so I see like the best of blues. I'm like, Mom, can I get that? Can I get that? And she's like, yeah, it's only a dollar, you know. And I play the tape, and I played that tape so much until it broke.
Yeah, so
You know,
I mean, you were really, really getting into it at an early age.
yeah, it was like I was getting into it. Like I was starting to get into, like, I discovered who John Lee Hooker was and Buddy Guy, and it's just anything that was rhythm and blues, that was funk based, or funky soul stuff. It was like what I was into, and but I mean, being around the family that I had, um, there was so many different influences that was coming up, around being around them. It's like, all of them have passed on. My grandmother, my two sisters, my father, and my mother. My father I didn't know much, but my mother being the last one 2 years ago. Um, it was like my oldest sister listened to a lot of pop music. So she also listened to a lot of classical music too, like Henry Mancini. She listened to the famous one, Nadia's theme, which is, of course, the theme for Young and the Restless. And I loved that as a kid. I used to love stuff like that. She would play Bach and Mozart and all that. But then she turned around and she listened to disco and pop music. Like, I was really, at the time, like, I would listen to Good Times, Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards. And I would try to mimic that, like Nile Rodgers, because Nile Rodgers is one of the funkiest rhythm players there, in existence. And then she had like Cyndi Lauper and George Michael and all that playing. And so I heard a lot of that. My middle sister, on the other hand, was the heavy metal classic rock head of the family. So I heard a lot of Metallica. She was the one who threw played Jimi Hendrix in front of me, which I thought it was heavy metal at the time. I didn't know it was. I thought it was current. And so she had Judas Priest, Twisted Sister, all that. But she was the hugest Rush fan you've ever seen in your life. Like every Rush album from 2112 to Roll the Bones was. I pretty much can name every Rush album that was ever made, because that's all I heard was that. And Queen, yes, Van Halen, Metallica, Master of Puppets. I heard that from front to back, so I know how that goes. My mother, on the other hand, was very eclectic. So I think what we did was we took our cue from our mother, and it was eclectic because my mother could turn around. She could listen to Motown, Stax. Then she turned around. Now she's listening to Patsy Cline, Loretta Lynn. Now she's listening to Mamas and the Papas and the Carpenters. And then, or if she liked what we were listening to, she would listen to that. Believe it or not. Like my mom liked Dave Matthews. Okay. But then she also loved, believe it or not, this is a true story. My mother bought the Speaker Box Love Below album by Outkast before I even had a chance to get it. And then she was listening to Tupac's California Love and blew out the speakers in the car because of that. But if she heard something she liked, I like that music. And I tell friends this, they can't believe it, but my mother really did love this, because my mom wasn't into metal though, really, but she did love Breaking the Law by Judas Priest. She knew the words to that, which, well, I was like, Mom, what do you know about that? She's like, I like, that's a good song. Breaking the Law, Breaking the Law. She loved that song, and she loved Joan Jett's I Love Rock and Roll. You know what I mean? That's how hip my mother was, because she's like, good music is good music. If you like it, you like it. If you stomp your feet to it, you can sing to it. It's good music, And so she was very eclectic in what she liked, If she heard some current, she like, oh, I like that. Oh, ooh, maybe a tape of that, or here, let me go buy the tape, and she go buy the tape, and then she blasted it in the car, and that's the type of person she was. And so here comes little old me. I'm into her soul records. I'm all listening to like Curtis Mayfield, the Impressions, and Sam Cooke and all that, And then I'm telling my mom one day, I was laughing because I said, Mom, you're listening to California Love? That's like old. That's from like 1996. And she's like, oh, hush up, boy. You listen to stuff from like 1964 and all that, so you can't tell nobody nothing. And I said, okay, you got a point. You got a point. Point taken. I'll shut up now. And so it was just like, yeah, that's what it was. And it's been hard ever since, but I still have all her 8-tracks because she never got rid of them. I still have her 45s, all her records, all my sister's music, both my sister's music and my mother. It's like a big stack of records, like sitting in the closet, just a pile high, And that's the thing. It was like always music was always going on. If I was like, my sister picked me up from kindergarten. She had like Luther Vandross playing. I get in the house, my mother making me a sandwich or something like that, maybe like a grilled cheese sandwich. She's got the record player on. It was always something going on. Music was always going on, and stuff like that. Even to the point, I still got my Walkman. Still, most people probably like, "What's a Walkman?" I said, "That's revealing the age, though." So, I reveal my age when I say Walkman. Everybody's like, "What's a okay CD player? What's that?" So it's pretty funny though. Like she would hear something, and I remember, like I said, she was like she was singing "Hey Ya," and she loved the song "I Like the Way You Move" because she would be like, she would sit there, she put on the headphones, and be like, "I like the way," but she would sing those parts. And even in her last years, my mother was like, I remember I bought some headphones. I still have them. I still have the headphones that she loved to listen to, and she actually was listening to music even on the day that she was passing. Music was still in her psyche because she was still moving to it. And I remember one time I took her to an appointment because my mother loved bass. Okay, she loved bass. I don't care if you had to blow up the speakers to get it. She wanted bass in the recording. And my headphones had this, they're skull candy, so they have that bass that makes your head just bob. And she's like, "Oh, I like these headphones." And I'm like, "Mom, I got to take them." She's like, "No, I want to keep them. I want to listen to them." So I made her own Spotify playlist. So she always knew when it was time to like, okay, put on. She's like, "Is the bass up?" I said, "Yeah." She's like, "No, it ain't. It's halfway." Okay, Mom, it's gonna make your head rattle. She's like, "I don't care. Throw it all the way up." So she was sitting there at a appointment, and my mom had not a care in the world either because she hears songs, she'd be like, she's sitting there bobbing her head and she starts singing. She was singing at the top of her lungs. People be in the elevator and they'd be smiling too, but she didn't care because she was just like, what was she's like, what song was she singing? I'm trying to remember. Was it a Joe Tex song? It might have been it might have been James Brown or something like that. And she's like, "Get up off of that thing." And she's just saying loud. And then here comes the doctor or the nurse. Miss, we'd like to speak to you. And she's like, she take off her headphones, like, what? And they're like, can we speak to you? "No, you're bothering me. I'm trying to listen to my music. Talk to my son. He knows all the stuff." And she put her headphones back in and she just bobbed her head. And they're like, "Can we ask you?" She's like, "What?" like, "Ask my son. I'm in the middle of a song right now." put the headphones back on. That's just how much she was into it. She had to have music playing all the time, and it was just, and mind you, that each one of them, my mother was a singer, my grandmother was a singer. My grandmother was first in state, won first in state with her choir in Texas. My mother had a singing group called the Champels, which her cousin and her cousin's husband, well, her cousin was singing in the group. The band leader was my mother's cousin's husband, who they both went to Garfield with Jimi Hendrix. And Jimi Hendrix was in his first band called the Rocking Kings. And if
Wow.
you look up the Rocking Kings, you'll see a picture of them playing at Washington Hall. I think it's 1960, I believe. And you'll see Hendrix with his white Super guitar. You'll see a guy playing piano. You see the back of his head. That's Robert Green. That's my mother's cousin's late husband. And they both also played in the Velvetones together. My middle sister was the drummer, the heavy metal head of the family. And so she was around during the era of where grunge started. And I remember sitting at her funeral, and there was friends that had said, I remember my sister talking about Kurt Cobain. They said, "Well, your sister actually like rubbed elbows with him at one time, because she's seen people like that." From what I heard, she's supposed to play with other different bands. She was supposed to play with the Indigo Girls, Parliament, all these other groups. So she was that. And then my other sister, so that was Chelsea. The other one, my oldest sister, Regina, she was the one who played piano and flute. and she was in one of the marching bands. That one time they did the marching band for the Dallas Cowboys at one time because she lived in Texas. So she's the oldest, middle, and I'm the baby. I'm the youngest.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean this house was just full of music all the time then.
Yeah, I mean, hear my mom. I mean, because my mom would like. I saw pictures of my mother like in her 20s when she was singing, but when she would be around the house, she would just kind of hum a bit, and never really hear her sing. And I was like, and then I got my chance, and I'll never forget it. It was she got together with old friends of hers, uh, well, the whole singing mates, and they were supposed to surprise one of the members for a birthday, you know. And so my mother was like, they were singing a song, but they weren't even singing. They were just like mumbling the words. And so I'm like, Mom, what y'all gonna do? Y'all gonna rehearse and y'all gonna just mumble through the songs? Like y'all gotta rehearse. Like, come on. Oh, hush up, boy. We know what we're doing. Just throw the key back a little bit because this is a little too high for us. Our voice ain't this high as it was. I said, all right. I said, and they were still mumbling. I was like, oh, come on. Why you guys just mumbling? Come on. Hush, boy. We know what we're doing. Stop. I'm like, all right. So they finally get there. I tell the band, this is what key they're playing it in. Finally get there. Now they get on the mic. Now I'm going to hear them sing. And at the time, I didn't have a phone camera because it was before 2006, and I wouldn't get my first cell phone until 2006. So I was watching, but I took pictures. And they got up and they sang some songs, and I was just like, I felt like the proud parent that day, And I was like, with tears, I was sitting there, like, when parents go to the graduation, they're like, okay, let's take a picture. And I was that person, I was like, taking all the photos and just watching them sing. And I was like, Mom, I didn't know you could sing like that. How come you didn't tell me? You always just mumble. She's like, oh, it's no big deal. It's never a big deal. That's how she would talk. And I'm like, but Mom, it is a big deal. You guys sound great. You guys should be on. You guys should like record some stuff and go on the road. We're too old for that. I'm like, no, it's not. Like Charles Bradley and Sharon Jones did it, and they're older. You can still do it. Why not? She's like, no, we too old to be traveling like that. But it was fun though, and I'm like, and it was. But it was. I was so happy to see my mother relive her youth. Watching her do that was and I cried. I admit I did. I cried, but it was happy tears, of that watching her though. And so, I just wish I had it on video, to watch it and play it back. So, but it just has to stay within the memory, banks.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful, man. That's awesome. When you started getting into bands kind of outside of school and in kind of in an extracurricular sense,
Mm-hmm.
uh, what was your mother's reaction to the music that you were playing and your sister's reaction to the music that you were playing when you left that?
Uh, when I was like playing, was like the first band I played with that was members were older than me I think it was 17, 18. Uh, my mother wasn't surprised uh, that I wanted to play, and I'll tell you why she wasn't surprised. This tracks back the one time I got a bad grade. Like it was like my mother was like, in order for you to get a good grade, I'm gonna have to take the guitar away, and you're gonna have to study until you get that grade right. And once you get that right, you can get the guitar back. And I was moping, but I worked hard though to get that grade, and I was moping really bad. And so I was starting to tear up. So, and my mother said, for that boy to mope around like that, and she told me that. She said, you moped around. And that's when I really knew you wanted to play. Because you never get that sad about anything. To see you just with your shoulders all slumped over, that told me you really wanted to play. And so they weren't surprised because that's all I was doing. Like all I was doing is coming home, putting on the records, listening to this stuff. And that's all I wanted to play. It was like Mustang Sally. I wanted to play Chuck Berry. I wanted to play James Brown, Cool in the Gang, and stuff like that. That's all I really wanted to do. And so it was no surprise. And my mother my mother was like, if you really want this, you're gonna have to go further in it. And she was honest, like, there's some trials and tribulations you have to go through. But if you want it badly enough, you'll work for it. And that's what she instilled. She always instilled that you want something bad enough, you're gonna work for it. And then yes, you're gonna go through the trials and tribulations and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, you want it badly enough, you'll stick with it. So yeah,
And she was right.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so it's because of them, it's like I do it for them. And I still, even though they're not here, I still do it for them, still to this day, because their legacy rides on my back, and I miss them. I miss each one of them. I wish they were here. Um, my mother, at least she got to see some of the stuff, and my middle sister, but my oldest sister, my grandmother didn't get to see that. And and so everything I ever do is in tribute to them and forever until, that day comes, and, I make sure, it's tough, it really is, but, uh, I just wish they were here to celebrate every moment, because every time there was a moment, you know, grand example, I remember getting a platinum record for a song I did, that, and when I first got it, my mother was the only person left, and I took a picture with it on her lap, and she's like, "What's that?" So it's a platinum record. She's like, "One of them records that everybody, the people on the Grammys and stuff be getting." I said, "Yeah, Mom, that's what it is." She's like, "You got it?" I said, "Mom, correction. We got this. This is not just mine. This is yours. This is Justice Regina's and my grandmother's. This is all of us. This is because of you. Without you, there's no me. So we did this together." So I said, "Mom, this belongs to you just as much as it belongs to all of them." I said, "The family name is in there." And as she said before that, she said, "You know what? I'll tell you something. I believe, you'll be nominated for a Grammy out of nowhere." I said, "What you mean?" I said, "You really think so?" She's like, "I know so." And then when it happened and we got nominated, I couldn't celebrate it because my mother ended up in the hospital, and that was the last time it was, and she would never come out of there, and I couldn't celebrate it, so I didn't talk about it really for a long time. But we got Grammy nominated, but I just couldn't celebrate it because I was worried about her, and I was supposed to celebrate it with her, but I told her, I said, we got nominated, and she smiled a bit, and that's the only confirmation I needed, from her.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
so she was right again. I mean, she's been right about a lot of stuff, about the
She
music,
always,
about her
always,
premonitions about what are you gonna accomplish. It's amazing.
she's always seen stuff. Uh, she always saw stuff further ahead because I used to tell myself all the time, "Oh, I wish I could do this. But I probably won't." She's like, "If you keep saying if you keep telling yourself that you won't, then it will not happen. But if you put it out there and say that you can, and you say that you will, it'll happen. It's what you put out there." And she's like, "At the end of the day, don't block your blessings," is what she always told me.
Yeah.
You know, she always told me two things: that and dig deeper. That was her quote and motto for life all the time. She told that to anybody, and everybody, of course. And she just say, if you keep telling yourself, if you say you can't do it, then it won't happen. But if you put out there, you know what, I will do this. I will. It may not happen when you want it to, but it'll be right on time. But you at least think about it. You know, I used to do this stupid stuff like finding my keys. I'll be like, lose the keys. I'm like, I can't find them. My mother's like, go pray about it. I said, Mom, I ain't gonna pray about it. I'm looking, can't find them, right? I'm still tearing up everything looking for it. So if you just pray about it, you find it. So I pray about it. I'm like, okay, I find it. All of a sudden, bang, the keys are right there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
she always had that. But yeah, she saw that, and she was just like, she used to tell somebody out a long time ago. She said that one thing about my son, he could talk about music, and if you talk music with him, prepare a lunch and a sleeping bag because you gonna be there all day and all night. So yeah, it was always the case.
That's awesome. Uh, so with working on music, even in these earlier days, she saw your progression with it.
Yeah, yeah. She was also my biggest critic too. You know, my biggest supporter, my biggest critic. If you ever saw one, my mom could tell you. I remember the truest story. I tell this story to friends all the time. Sorry if I'm smoking a cigarette. I'm sorry.
No, no,
Um,
no, 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 please, please.
um, but I remember once um, at the talent show, right? You know, I didn't know much about solos then, so I was just kind of playing whatever. And so I was like, "Mom, uh, I came out of the show, right? I mean, listen to it now. I was like, it was not where it should be, but you know." And so I said, "Mom, I said, tell me what you think." She said, "Truth. The first three notes were right. Everything else was off." Like that was my mom. My mom did not mince words at all. She just kept it all the way 100, you know? And so you hear notes, you be sitting there in the kitchen, nope, that ain't the right note. Play that, do that again until you get it right, you know? And I remember the last show she got to see me play. And I remember being so nervous. I was guesting with my friend Eva from the Black Tones, her group. They were opening up for Mavis Staples, and it was my mother's birthday week. Actually, the photo that's in my Instagram with my mom. If you flip to the next one, there's the one where I'm leaning my head into her. That's from that show. That was that last show, and David McGraw from the True Loves had taken that photo. And I remember being just sweaty, nervous. Like I said, "Oh my God!" And then I said, "Why are you so nervous?" I said, "My mom's here, you know." And I'm sitting there just, you know. And so we went up and played, and I still have video of it. It's hard for me to look at because knowing that was the last time she got to see me play. And she got there, and she was in her wheelchair. She was right next to the sound man. So she was watching. As soon I don't even remember putting the guitar in the holster. I think I just dropped it. I was like, and ran on stage. And I was like, mom, what do you think? She said, "You want me to be honest?" I say, "Yes." She said, "It was fantastic. I'm very proud of you." She's like, "You come a long way." I'm very proud, but I've always been proud of you. And that's all I needed to hear. I could die, never hear another word again. You know what I mean? Never hear another word again. Just hearing that, her words meant more to me than anybody, and still always will be. You know, like my mom could just, her words could lift me up in a way nobody else could. You know, because she taught me so much. You know, just not in music, but just in life in general. You know, and you know, it's just that's what it is.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, you know,
right. Yeah, that's that you need those. There's certain people that their words mean more than anything else,
well,
and
my sister and her both were my first teachers. My mother would be like, emphasize, listen to the melody, emphasize. My middle sister would be like, tempo and pockets, everything, stay out the way. And she's like, and I was, what you mean? She's like, whatever you do when you play, stay in your own, stay in your own lane. Don't get all in everybody's way. Everybody has a part to play. You play your part, play your position, but don't be getting in the way and doing all that. Find your part, stick it. You know,
right, right.
and it's true. It's just like, and that's what it is. It's like if I have to play a part, I'll stay in my lane. You know, if I know there's two other guitar players and they're playing, well, I try not to get in their way. You know, or they try not to get in my way. You know, and I stick my part, even if it's one note. I just stay there, So, but that was a lot of that was just the teaching of it was just listening, playing, figuring out what this is, understanding the story of it. Because I think that's also the thing too. Is like with music, as a kid, and I still do, I like to read the backs of records. I like to know the story behind the song. Why was the song so great? What inspired this tune to be what it is? You know, Sometimes those guys are like, I wasn't thinking that. I was just playing whatever came to mind, and stuff. And it's like, take example like My Girl, knowing the story about that. It was like Smokey wrote it was like, I've got sunshine, boom. And then everybody's like, The band was like, let's try something else, you know. And then Jamerson came up with the boom, 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 boom. The guitar line was never written. Robert White, the session guitarist of the Funk Brothers, was like, I'm just gonna play a C major pentatonic scale. He didn't think nothing of it at that time. And now, it's like you can hear that guitar line anywhere. The minute you play that dun 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 dun, dun, dun everybody's like, I've got sunshine. They're singing the song. And he didn't think nothing of it. He was just like, I'm just gonna play him because I thought it works. It works, you know? And it's like,
Yeah,
I wish I
it
could meet
certainly
those guys.
certainly worked. Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah, I wish I could meet those guys. I wish those guys were still like a lot of my heroes in music, most of them are gone, and I would love to have met them. One person still left is Steve Cropper, and I'm still trying to figure out. I talked to somebody else. I was like, how can I talk to Steve Cropper? Because I just want to have a conversation with him. Because there's a lot of stuff I want to ask him. I don't know to sit in a room with him and just be at his feet and just be like, whoa, how did you play that on Otis Redding? How did you play this on this? And just be amazed. So
Yeah, he's incredible, incredible guitarist.
yeah.
Sure. So when you were kind of getting into these different groups, outside of this, uh, of a school sense,
Mhm.
was there a big music scene at that time when you were kind of entering into it?
Uh, I, I, I guess I wasn't really paying attention to it much, but it was sort of. But of course, I wasn't 21 yet, so I couldn't, get in the clubs, and stuff. Even though I tried by trying to grow my mustache, at least a little that I had, the peach fuzz. But there was some stuff going on. It was harder when you were under 21 to get in. There was certain places that would let you play up until like 9 o'clock, and then be like, okay, we have to kick you out of here because they're starting to serve alcohol. We can't have you in here. And uh, there was some people. One guy was a mentor. His name was Coleman Brown. He played with a group called Septimus, and a lot of times he would take me under his wing because he was I forget how old he was then. I know he was older than me. He was old enough to be my father, and he would tell the bar owners, he's like, "Here, you stay over here, just don't go near the bar." I was like, "You have nothing to worry about because alcohol don't smell appetizing to me anyway." So it was just, but I would sit in with his band, and they would play blues and rhythm and blues. So I would just play under him a lot of times, and stuff like that, catch the bus over there, like, okay, you know, and go plug in, and learn a lot, and those were older guys, and they didn't take no mess either. If you started, doing too much at the time, they would, they curse you out in a minute, not him, but I've seen it happen. So people were like, hey, boy, what the hell? They didn't say to me, but they said it to other guitar players. They get up there, like, boy, what you doing? Stop all that nonsense and play play the guitar, as they call it.
Yeah,
So it was
serve the song kind of a thing. Yeah.
right. And that's the thing you had to do, you really had to really serve the music because that's just they were giving you the basic foundation, you know, of learn how to play with the band, not against the band, you know, find your part. Like my sister said, find your part, you know. And when it's time for you to solo, yeah, you can show out if you want to. But everything else, play with the band, play as a unit, not one man above the band. It's like we're all equal. We're all like the components of an engine. You know, it's like each working part has to make the vehicle move. You know, so it's like you got to. You know, if one part goes bad, well then shoot something else and it goes haywire. So that's how I looked at. You know, how I learned from that.
Yeah. Were there people that you would eventually begin to play with around that music scene, or did you kinda come across the people that you would eventually play with later on in different circles?
It took years, you know, it took years because I was just playing in different bands. I was playing with whomever, you know, and it was like, you know, if it was jam sessions, you know, because we go to open mics, you go to jams, you meet other musicians and stuff like that, and it would, you know, it would take years, you know, and I would jam and stuff like that, and you know, when it got to like, you know, like the band I'm in now, the True Loves, uh, it you know, that was, of course, years later, of course. And it was just like David McGraw, the founder, you know, drummer of the True Loves. He was like, he told me a story. He said, I remember seeing you play with one of the bands years before I even knew you. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah. And then he's like, I got the courage to uh, message me on Facebook Messenger. I didn't know who he was at the time, you know. And he's like, hi, my name is David McGraw. I play drums. You don't know me, but I get together with Bryant, who's the bassist of the True Loves. He's like, I get together with him down my practice space in Soto, you know. And on Sundays, would you ever want to come down? And I said, okay, sure. So I'm coming down. I don't know the guys. I'm like, all right, let's come down here and we started jamming and stuff. And I really dug what they were playing. I was like, man, this is more like along the lines of stuff I really dig. And it went from there.
And, when was that around? Like, what year are we talking about that you started jamming with them?
Was it 2000? Was it 2013 to 2014? I believe. I think that's the beginning of that.
Mhm.
And which, you know, our first show together as the True Loves was August 11th. So it's our 10 year. It'll be our 10-year anniversary. It's our 10-year anniversary, you know, of the band.
Yeah.
And yeah, we got together and it was just like, and it just started out and we played and here we are, you
10
know.
years later, I mean, that's a lot.
Mhm. Yeah.
Did were the bands and the people that you were playing with before joining True Loves was kind of an influence, or
Yeah.
had an influence in what you were making with them?
Yeah. There's a band I still play with on and off when I'm in town. Um, the affiliate on guitar duties, a group called F2D. They play at the Sea Monster Lounge on Friday nights at 10 o'clock. And and I remember when we first started, actually the first England, the proto version of that band was called Champickle. That's what it was called. and and the bassist, Mark Mantry, who now is the owner of the Sea Monster, he used to come in from Portland and drive 3.5 hours to play and to drive, you know, and then sleep and then go all the way back. And so we would play and we like played different things and stuff we knew. And then so then a year or two goes by and then he moves up here permanently. And then the owner, Andrew Nunez, who's the original owner of the Sea Monster, he's like, man, we need something on a Friday night. So all we had was it was just me, the drummer Darnell Washington, or we call him Woogie. But everybody just calls him Woogie. Nobody calls him by his real name. And it was just us three. We started off as a three-piece. And this is before the True Loves, actually. And we all of a sudden all I can recall was like the few songs that we did know. and we played. I think the first song I remember us playing happened to be "These Eyes" by the Guess Who. Uh, then we started. They hit me to Dyke and the Blazers, and we started playing "Let a Woman Be a Woman, Let a Man Be a Man." We played that stuff. We played Jungle Boogie. We played some of the James Brown stuff that I remember from high school, and went from there. And we started playing just James Brown, Super Bad and Sex Machine and, and all that stuff. So it was like all that stuff came back from even high school and then played it. And then the band started adding more. We like got Melissa Montalto on keys and vocals, and then Rock, on other keyboards and stuff like that. And then we got horns with Jason Cressy, people, Peter Daniel, all the people, and we started getting more people together, and then that's what happened, and it worked. But the True Loves ended up forming uh just we jammed together, and then we started just writing stuff. I still even have, honestly, I still have the first versions because we had a lead singer at the time, and then that didn't pan out after a time, and stuff, went our separate ways. But the True Loves just did what we did, and I remember like we played "The Dirt," which is our oldest song that we had, because we had rehearsed before that. Um, what is it? Like, yeah, we rehearsed. I remember before the show, our first show, because we played at Columbus City Beat Walk, and we needed some instrumentals to introduce the singer. And so that was the first one, and I still have the recording. It's on Dropbox somewhere of how it really sounded. And then, I mean, it's still not too much different. The horn line changed, of course. And then she was like, she needed to have some time, and we were like, okay, what do we do? What do we do? And she's like, can you guys make up another song? So I start playing. I said, David, play this beat like that, tap, 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 tap. And I said, just play that. And that's when the song CC Stomp was made right on the spot. And of course we were later recorded when we perfected it, but that was the first inclination of it.
So I mean, this is a natural kind of progression of this band over the years.
Right, and you listen to it, it's like there was like inclinations of what would later be what the songs are. It's like I remember like The Dirty was the tune, and I remember all of a sudden I was at this job, and all I remember was like I kept hearing this blah 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 blah, and that's all I kept singing to myself. So I sang it to my phone because I didn't have my guitar with me, and then I picked it up and I showed the band, and we played it in one key, and then Brian was like, let's transpose that whole step down. I was like, okay. I was like, you sure about that? And he's like, yeah. I was like, and it worked, and that's what the song is now. So yeah. At first I was kind of like, oh, we have to play it in a different bit. I was like, but I understand when you play flats and sharps, it's easier for the horns too. So it's easier in those keys. So we played it more along those lines. And it worked, it really did. It worked really good.
Right.
So yeah.
Was that early on that the horns kind of came into that project?
Yeah, the horns that we had a trumpet player who he plays with the Parlor Remix, and then Greg came in a little bit, not too soon, not too long after, but the mainstays are still pretty much similar to who they are, and stuff like that.
Hmm. Was that
So,
was that the idea from the beginning? Like, we got to get some horns in here, or did it just
oh
kind of?
yeah, oh
Okay.
yeah, definitely, yeah, definitely. Just like the big horn sound and stuff like that is just, I like the sound of that. So yeah, we had the horns came in, and that was the idea. And then we had Yvonne come in, because I know Yvonne from playing with a group called Big Roll Breaks. That was a band that we used to play funky beats for breakdancers, because they used to have this thing called Massive Monkeys Day, where all these breakdancers from around the world would come in, and they needed like a live band playing like James Brown breaks and all that stuff, or meters breaks, and they just wanted something they could dance to. And so I knew him from then, and he played percussion. So we had him play, and I love rhythm. Rhythm is and like when you listen to songs like "The Dirty" or "Mary Poppins," you can hear, the heavy percussion from Yvonne and David, the interplay between that. So that always worked. It was always great. And I love rhythm. Rhythm is just, I don't know. It's just, you can't help it. So yes.
Did you feel like the addition of the brass to the group kind of let you expand in different ways with guitar playing for
Well,
that group?
well, yeah, because I mean, it's like what I like is the horns fill up that space also, and it's like, and it's like, but it's not saying it fills up the space completely, but just enough in the right spots, and gives it this groove because, they're like, it's almost like, it's like having vocals, but except you have the horns doing that, they're they're the like the lead vocalist, you know, and so, they do like, it's almost like lead and background vocals, push and pulling with those two, and so it always sounds great. It's just great to have brass, period, and stuff like that. So it's always fun.
Right. Does playing with other people just in general kind of let you explore different ideas, even if it's not bass orient or brass oriented or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I played in, here's thing people probably don't know about me, but I will throw it out there. I played bass for a heavy thrash metal punk band called High Priest of Panic at one time. I was, and it's funny because I didn't know much punk bass lines, so I just basically like played Motown bass lines over a punk rock beat, which it worked, because they didn't have a bassist, and so they're like, and I had a bass, and I'm like, well, you play bass with us? I was like, okay, and so we would play like, these like, you know punk rock parties and stuff like that, and they were like, you're supposed to be like, "Brr, brr, brr, brr," but I didn't know that then, so I was just like, boo, 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 boo. I was just playing Motown. I was like, I'm gonna play walking bass lessons. That's all I know to do, and it worked, and it worked out great, and so there's a recording of it somewhere, but it was just like, it's funny because when their fans came up to me, like, wow, this is very danceable. And usually you don't dance to punk, but you can dance to this. This is great, So we did that. Yeah, it was fun though. We played some shows in Bremerton and Vancouver, BC, and I remember that, and it was just, and they, and I didn't have a bass set, but they had these big wall of speakers, like these 18, like two 18-inch speakers. So I'm like, the bass was just like, brr, but I was just like, it worked. That's all I do. That's all I do on bass was Motown. So I was like, either that or disco walking bass lines, like on like, certain things you hear. But yeah,
If it works, it works.
right. It worked out. It worked out somewhere. Again, they hold the tapes, maybe one day they'll put them up online and be like, that was you. Like, yeah, that was me amazing. So it was pretty fun.
Was that your first kind of foray into playing bass though? With it was with that band.
Actually, wasn't the first time I played bass. The first time I played bass, I was 16. And I took to it quite naturally. I don't know why. It was I took to it pretty easily because when the first bass player in the high school band switched out, then they had another bass player come in, but the bass player also played guitar. And so he did a side project where he wanted to play guitar. So I got on bass. And we played one show, and it was in the morning at I think the drummers, it was a Unitarian church. And we played, and it was like funky, it was like funky rock, like sort of thing, like funky prog rock type stuff. And so, because of course, it's more prog rock, but it was like, but I had that kind of like, the funky element to it. So, and again, I have it on tape, not on tape, but I have it on CD. So in one of my CD collections, and it was just like, I just took to it. We would rehearse and play that stuff. It was great. It was I probably still remember how to play it on bass if I do. But if I heard it again, I probably remember how to play it. But yeah, it was pretty simple, pretty straightforward.
Are you usually inspired by where a song is going in the moment, rather than writing out ideas, to bring to the table later on?
Majority of the time, I don't like. Sometimes I write it down. Like, well, I mean, when I say write it down means I don't write down notation. I just have it in my head. And sometimes I'll just start off with something and we get a groove going and we'll see what happens. Like in case in point, the Parlor Greens, like the first song, West Memphis. Uh, how that happened was, Tim, stayed in conversation with me, Tim from G20. And
Shout out to
Tim,
Tim. Amazing, amazing guy. And if you
yeah,
haven't
Tim
listened to
was,
that interview, go ahead and go listen to that after this one. Is Yeah, great guy.
oh yeah, no, Tim was great. I've known him off and on, and like knew him, of him playing with G20. And I remember him and Terry were talking about doing like some kind of project. And so he's like, let's get Adam Scone on board, myself. And I remember the day was that we flew into, what was it, that airport? Was it something? It was in Kentucky, but you have to drive from Kentucky. It's like to Cincinnati or something like that. And so um, Tim came and picked me up. Adam already had flown in, and we get to Loveland, and Terry's there and stuff. And so all I remember was we put our bags down. We didn't, we were just talking. Me and Terry were talking about some stuff. And then all of a sudden I hear Tim bang away on the drums, right? And I hear Adam playing. So I said, well, and I'm already jet lagged, but I'm like, whatever, let's just play. So we start playing. And next thing you know, the groove started. So we were messing around with that. And I think Terry just rolled the tape. And we start off, and that's how West Memphis got started. And that was from the day we had just got in, and we ended up recording most of the night. Then we took the little photo shoot that we did, which, you see, that was the day right after, and I mean, we were just cutting songs right and left. It was like, okay, Tim had an idea, or Adam had an idea, and it was just, and we worked them out, and it was great. We got through it and sat in that room, and we were just having a blast, and it was just, and it was just flying by so quick we didn't realize it, like it was going by that quick, but um, we were just having a blast with it. Of course, and Terry's famous sausage biscuit sandwiches were the thing that was, every time I see Terry, I'm like, Terry, what were those sausage biscuit sandwiches? Because he would make it every morning.
Tim had mentioned these breakfast sausage sandwiches.
And Terry would get up every morning and make them. We're like, you feel the energy. It's like you feel like Super Mario Brothers, when you hit the thing and the mushroom makes you bigger, and you're small Mario, you hit it, and then all of a sudden that's what it felt like. It was just like every day we just go in there and record and record and record. We're like, oh, let's try out this, let's try out that. And what was great about it in the Parlor Greens is that we got to play stuff that each one of us normally wouldn't be able to play. It's like, oh, we get to play that. Well, let's play that. Oh, you want to play that? Oh man, I never get to play that. Well, let's play this, and stuff like that. And yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And real quick, also for those who haven't listened to it, go check out the Adam Scone interview as well, because another amazing musician. I mean, just very, very talented. I now there's a pattern here, Jimmy, that you like to surround yourself with really talented musicians, and I think that has something to do with the good music that you're making. I don't know though. I don't know if that's proven or not. That's just a theory that I have.
Well, I just look at it as when you're playing with people amongst friends, and you're playing amongst friends and you're into music that you all you have chemistry together. That's the key. If you have chemistry with each other and you're into the similar music or same music, whichever, and you know, and you can play without having to tell, hey, I need you to play it like this. It's just kind of like you just flow off of each other like one big wave. It's a beautiful thing. It really is. It's one of the most beautiful things ever to be in that situation where it's like, okay, we can just start playing something and everybody picks up what you're putting down. You know, everybody, we're all grooving together, but we're all riding that crest of a wave. Like we're on that big surfboard. And as the wave gets higher and higher and higher, you just go, you know, you just go with the flow. And it's just like you can play telepathically without having to say a word. That's when you know you're with the right people because the chemistry is where it is. And if you believe in it enough and you love it enough and you guys all believe in it together, well, everybody else will too. At least I hope, you know, and stuff.
Right.
But that's, you know, I just play with people that not only not only do I get to play music with them, but do I get to hang out with them afterwards. Sorry, that's my phone doing that.
No, it's
But
all right. I liked it. I think it added to the thing.
it's just like when you're with cats and you're just playing music and you're playing together, and not only that, you can hang out afterwards, you know, and stuff. And be like, okay, let's go to a jam. We haven't had enough. We're still playing. Okay, let's go to this jam session. Let's try something, you know. Let's go off road and see what happens, you know. And it's just like, you know, and if the band feels like, okay, what's going to happen? I don't know. But you know what? We're all sitting around in a Volkswagen Beetle and we're going to go off road and we're going to hit all these bumps and see if we can land it. And then we'll find the exit. We'll get back on the freeway again. But that's just how it works, you know? And I know that's kind of a weird way to look at it, but it's kind of like that's where it's at. And again, with your most friends and your most people, and you can have the worst day, but then you guys play together and it makes you just, it forgets how bad your day was. Somebody can have a bad day in the band and all of a sudden they're like, they get on stage and everybody's smiling and without a care in the world. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it really is. What do you get from making music?
You know what? I think to me, honestly, because it's so hard for me to sometimes say, and I know some people might say it's hard for me to sometimes speak and get my articulate my words across, and music becomes un that how do I say the word? There's not a language barrier there because sometimes I have a hard time getting either my mind is racing fast or something like that, and I sometimes can't articulate what I really want to say, you know. And sometimes, and a lot of times, music articulates more of what I really want to say, you know, in a deeper sense. And so a lot of times it's like I can get things off my chest that way, but non-verbally, you know, and I just feel whatever comes to mind, you know. It's like these ideas. It's kind of weird. Like I wouldn't say weird, but there are things. It's just may not make sense to other people, but like crazy example. I remember as a kid, I used to. It's still up there, and I still do this to this day. I like to go up to the transmission lines, the high voltage lines. And I used to go as a kid. My mother used to take me up there. And I would just sit there in the grass and I would just listen to them. And it did make sense to most people. Like, why would you sit there and just want to listen to voltage lines? And my mother got it. Other people didn't get it, but my mother got it. And my mother's like, you know, I said, as I hear music in those lines, you know. And it's funny because there's on each transmission tower, there's 6 wires. Well, what's on a guitar?
6 strings,
Six
yeah.
strings. And I would hear frequencies, I would hear certain things, or people would talk to me, you know. And as they're talking, I'm hearing like a cadence in their voice, or I'm hearing a melody. And I might hear them, they're talking, they're like, why are you playing while I'm talking? Because I'm hearing certain things, you know, or I get on bass. And I remember I used to watch some ladies like they play double dutch, and they had a rhythm in their head movement, or how they double dutch, and I would play to that. I would hear a certain rhythm, or I walk down the street and I get a rock in my shoe, a rock not in my shoe, but outside of my shoe, stuck in the treads of my shoe, and I could walk and I'm hearing do clack, boop, clack, boop, clack. And I'm like, that sounds like a rhythm. Or the washing machine, would unbalance. My mother, every time the washing machine would unbalance, and it was like boom, 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 and I would hit it back. I'm like boom, kaboom, 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 kaboom. You know, I would hear that. I hear because music can be almost anywhere. Music can be anywhere. You can watch you can hear a engine going. You know what I mean? There's a beat there. There's a rhythm there. There's a music there. People talk. We have, and when we talk, there's a key when we're singing. I mean, when we're talking. Or somebody might say, uh, I'm feeling this way and I'm going this way or I'm going that way, and you're like, oh, well, that's da 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 ding, da 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 ding, da 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 ding. You know what I mean? It's like they were talking about like Led Zeppelin was talking about Out on the Tiles. And John Bonham was talking about I can remember the words. He's like, I get a little drunk and I'm drinking too much and I'm out on the tiles. And he's like, I'm drinking and I'm doing and I'm smoking and I'm out on the, and he goes, I'm out on the tiles. And then when you hear the song, it's like dun, 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 dun. It's like dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. And that was John Bonham just singing something about out on the tiles. And then and Jimmy Page took that and that became the guitar melody for that. You know,
Right.
funny thing, it can come from the oddest sources. Give an example: Mary Poppins, true story. And this is gonna be the weirdest thing you hear, but I want everybody to hear. So we were doing Mary Pop. Now, David came up with that title, but I remember thinking of Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory. And everybody remember, anybody who's ever watched that movie, there's the Oompa Loompas where they're like, Woompa, Whoopa Dee Doo. So I was thinking to myself, what would it sound like if they were strutting down the street? What would it sound like? You know? And so I was like, huh, what would the Oompa Loompa sound like? So I was like, da 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 ba da ba da 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 ba, and that's what it sounded like to me. And so I was just thinking of Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory, and the Oompa Loompas was just strutting down the street with like they had a Harlem strut, and they were pimp walking, down the street, and that's what it sounded like to me, you know. And the same thing with the Dirty. It was just me going blah 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 blah. I don't know why. It just, the music comes from, and we never know where it comes from half the time. I mean, we know, well, if you're religious, and stuff like that, but it comes from somewhere that's beyond us, and that's why I think the music, if you're any musician, it's bigger than you. That's what I say.
Mm, on the flip side of that question, what do you want people who hear the music that you make to take away from it?
Um, hopefully hopefully it makes you feel good, and I would say it like we just want you to. Hopefully, the music will make you feel good, you know, and if it makes you feel good, it feels good like a warm plate of food that grandma makes, you know. Uh, that's how I look at it. It's just like if it feels good and makes you tap foot, then that's what it's made for, and if it inspires you, or if or what have you, but at the end of the day, we just want you to feel good, you know, and bring people together, that's how I look at it, uh, if everybody digs it, yeah, that's how I look at it.
Amazing. Um, Jimmy, thank you so much for sitting down with me and having this chat. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad that we were able to put this together.
Oh yeah, no worries. Like I could, I mean, if I didn't have to go to this recording session right now, well, I could do this all night. Like this is just, I just love to just talk about music. And that's, that's again, that's what my mother said about me all the time. He's like, again, this boy, we thought we loved music. I thought my daughters loved music, but boy, my son could talk your head off for hours at a time, all day and every day.
I really do appreciate you coming on here. But before I let you go, I got some promo to do here. Uh,
Okay.
Parlor Greens, which we were just discussing here, the debut album is out July 19th via Coal Mine Records. So
Hmm.
please go and pick that up. And there are multiple singles out as we're speaking right now. So go back and listen to those. That will all be linked below whatever you're listening to this on. And be sure to follow the band on Instagram at Parlor Greens. And True Loves. Um True Loves music also streaming everywhere wherever people get their music. That's where they can find it, right, Jimmy?
Hmm. Yep.
Perfect.
Or on Instagram at True Loves Band as well. So yeah.
Awesome. And people can go buy the records at colorred.com, which will also be linked below. And so yeah, Parlor Greens, True Loves, go get the music now and keep an eye out for when they're coming around your neck of the woods and go check them out. And Jimmy, do we have anything else to promote before we cut you loose
All I
here?
know is True Loves are to be in Europe in the fall, uh, starting I think around. I'll just say go to truelovesband.com and stuff. We're supposed to be in Europe in the fall, and then also there's Parlor Greens. We're supposed to do some shows with the Dip, and I think Kelly Finnegan and Atonements, and then there's some stuff in the new year of 2025. So we're doing that, and also True Loves will be working on another record pretty soon.
Tons of stuff to look out for. So yeah, make sure you keep your eyes peeled for all that good stuff.
Oh yeah.
Jimmy, thank you again, sir. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no worries at all. I do this, like I said, I can do this all night.
Perfect. All right, I'll see you in about an hour, and then we'll recharge. Um,
Okay.
thank you very much, Jimmy. I'm gonna stop recording this, and I'll talk to you in a minute. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, sir.